Happy Thursday, everyone, and welcome back to the self-care series. Today, we are here with my good friend, Grace Hartmann. And
Hi.
I am so excited. So Grace is going to tell you about herself. But once again, I've noticed the one thing about, or a good portion of all the people who are going to speak on this are trauma people. And I realize I think it's because I love trauma and studying trauma and all the things. And so Grace is just another one of those amazing therapists here in Little Rock, and she'll tell you where she works and stuff like that. And so, Grace, I can't thank you enough for being on here today, and I can't wait to hear. So tell us a little bit about you and kind of jump on in and tell us about what you want to teach us today.
All right. Well, thank you for having me. My name is Grace Hartmann, and I am a therapist at the Finding Place Counseling in Little Rock. We are a team of all trauma trained people, like you said. It's a small, real small, private practice. There's 4 of us, and we're all Brainspotting trained. So I'm also EMDR trained and am working towards specializing in trauma. So I see 14 and up, send the little ones to you, and keep the grown-ups for myself. I see couples too. I'm EFT trained as well, and so I'm able to use a lot of couples things and traumas things to kind of intertwine the two. So yeah, that's me. So I am going to talk about staying out of trauma brain, especially right now during COVID and all of the chaos that is right now. I've reminded my clients that this is like a collective communal trauma that we are all experiencing. And I'm working with a lot of my clients, not so much on what does it mean to thrive right now, but just what does it mean to not drop into lower trauma brain. So basically what that means is that it all comes back to our ability to regulate. And so there's a quote that I like by Patty Elledge, who's a trauma therapist, and she just says, regulation is the nervous system's ability to navigate the highs and lows of activation and return to calm. So activation being the things that trigger us, get us wound up, get us feeling anxious or upset. And so to be able to return to calm is of the utmost importance for regulation in the body. So as we all know, the world is kind of chaotic right now, feels very uncertain, feels very out of control for everyone, especially just with like the confusion and the kind of just like the chaos of all this different conflicting information. There's new information every day. There's so much coming at us all the time. And it's hard. Our brains are in overload, they're in overdrive, they're overwhelmed. And so when I explain trauma brain to my clients, if I don't have my brain model with me, I like just kind of use like the hand the brain. So for those of you who are not familiar with this, like our brains are relatively shaped like this. We've got our prefrontal cortex here, which is like your human brain. So your ability to reason, to like talk, all verbal ability is here. Your ability to make sound decisions, cause and effect, things like that, all here. So underneath or behind your human brain, you've got like your mammal brain in the middle, and then your amygdala, so that's like your reptile brain. So that's where we go in trauma. That's our fight, flight, and freeze. And when this baby is on, this is off. So if we are in fight, flight, or freeze, we are not thinking rationally. We are not making good decisions. We are not walking through like cause and effect for anything in our life. So it's hard to not drop like into this area right now for people. And so that's what I want to talk to you guys about today, a little bit about how to just stay in like this part of the brain instead. Trauma for everybody is a default setting to like your survival patterns. So down here, like trauma brain, you're going fight, flight, freeze, and that's it. So right now, when you think of like fight, you think aggressive, frustrated, I'm irritable. Then you've got people who typically go into flight. like avoidance and or defensiveness, and then people who freeze, who are looking to numb right now or are shutting down emotionally. And it's hard to not fall back into those patterns. And so the thing about those patterns is that they're very much connected to your body. So one of the things that trauma trained therapists, and I know Katie, like you know this with EMDR and hypnotherapy, is the brain and the body are all connected. Like things are not just in the head like they used to think, like, oh, you can just talk this out, we can just make it make sense. And it's not like that. Trauma is stored in our body. And that being like this part of the brain is so connected with our nervous system, which is why in times of trauma we have these somatic responses. So our heart rate goes up, we get flushed, we like have a stomach ache, we've got tension in our muscles, like we notice all of these like physical manifestations of these feelings. And that's because like everything is connected, and you can't just outthink anxiety or fear or trauma. And anybody who has gone through anything like that knows I cannot outthink this. My body responds when I don't know what to say. Like my body stores that. And so we have to engage our nervous system to be able to regulate. So there's a couple of things that I want to go into, just like practical points on how to engage our nervous system. But before I do that, is there anything that you want to say? Like, have you experienced this with your clients, just the body response?
Yeah, so it's funny you said that, because right before me and Grace got on the call, I told Grace that I am a shopper who very much like, I just go to the grocery store and grab something here and grab something there. And like, I do not like to buy a lot of things at once. That's overwhelming. I like self-checkout. I want in, out, quick, nothing. And so I'm trying to follow the quarantine rules. So I just bought like a month worth of supplies. And I think I walked around the store like this. I think I was like in freeze. In fact, I'm not even sure I know what I got home with and bought.
Yeah.
Probably something crazy like livers and stuff. Like I was totally checked out. Like I had the mask on. So right, my amygdala is like, danger, danger. You're in this area. Your face is covered. You feel like you can't breathe. My glasses were fogging up. And so, and it's, when you said that, when you're saying all this, I'm sitting here thinking, oh yeah, why didn't I use these like practical techniques? Because I forget them too, right? Because we're in trauma brain. This is not thinking brain. So I'm excited to hear your like the practical techniques of how to get this back engaged, because I think I am just here right now. Period.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and the masks even elevate that because of a lack of oxygen, and we're like breathing back in whatever carbon dioxide or whatever. And so your body's kind of like, are things okay? I don't think things are okay.
They're like, danger, danger, danger.
Right. Yeah. The last time I went to the grocery store, it took me probably an hour and a half in a very hot shower to like really feel like my body wasn't like in like hyper vigilant alert state.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, absolutely.
Tell us, like, how can we act? You said like to calm it down, we need to, let me see if I can quote this correctly, activate the like nervous response. Is that what you said? To
like regulate your nervous system.
Regulate your nervous system. So kind of, I'm just excited. I'm like on edge, ready to hear some good practical techniques.
Yeah. Well, and I emailed Katie a graphic that you can like share with this, I think, when you share it.
Yeah.
That just kind of explains like the variance in zones that we have, so to speak. There being like a green safe zone where we want to keep our body, and then we've got like yellow kind of like caution zone, and then we have a red zone. So being able to regulate your nervous system is all about, how do I get back to the green? Maybe I'm just in yellow, I'm feeling a little bit like wound up or anxious, or I can feel this heaviness in my chest. How do I get back to green? Or maybe we're all the way in red and maybe everything feels like scary and kind of an emergency right now. So there's a few things that I'm going to go over. So the first thing that I teach my clients is like grounding techniques. So we need to stay like in the present. We need to be mindful. We need to be compassionate. We need to be curious and open, and we need to find joy. So those are the things that I'm going to kind of go over real quick. So as far as being mindful goes, finding a way, whatever works for you, of being able to be mindful and present in your body. So meditation being an option for that. There's so many good apps out right now, like the Calm app or the Breathe app, that just kind of walk you through guided meditations for people who aren't comfortable or maybe used to it. It kind of sounds like a kind of out there idea, but in reality, it's all about just slowing down your pace, slowing down your breathing, and being able to be in your body. So meditation is great. Grounding is its own kind of technique in the therapy world, where you go through your 5 senses, focusing at least a minute on each one. I always have my clients start with their sense of sight. So you can do this anywhere, and you take a minute and you start with your sense of sight. So what are a few things that I can see right now that feel calming, or at worst neutral, but maybe things that I really like? Maybe there's a vase of flowers in my room, or there's a globe that I like, or my curtains, or just whatever you can see in the moment that feels calming to you. And just taking a minute and really focusing in on that sense. Then you can move on to like your sense of hearing. Okay, when I'm really quiet for a minute, maybe I close my eyes. What are some things that I can hear? And maybe it's my air conditioner, maybe it's the tick of a clock. I always tell clients if they can't hear something, they can kind of make their own little noise that can be helpful. Sense of smell. For this, I usually keep a couple of essential oils or something on hand, but maybe you have a favorite candle, or you have essential oils or something, a scent that you like, a lotion or something like that, that you can have nearby. And just even closing your eyes and just focusing on that scent for a minute. And then same thing with sense of taste. I usually have like peppermints or something like that for clients to have, but it can be anything that is around that they enjoy. And then I always do sense of touch last. And I like to start with kind of an internal sense of touch and just kind of scanning the body for sensations that are already there. Oh, I feel this kind of tightness in my back, or I feel, maybe my hands are a little tingly. And then from there, I shift to like an external sense of touch. So I can feel, my feet grounded into the floor, or I can feel, even like my arms grounded into my chair, just kind of whatever position your body's already in. Maybe your legs are crossed and you can really feel the weight of your ankle on your knee, or whatever it is. So that's grounding. That can be really helpful to just recenter to like present moment, present location. That's a really great technique. And with that, what I have found, and this is true for, well, really all of these, is they become more effective the more you use them, and more efficient the more you use them, because your brain kind of goes, oh, we're calming down. Okay, yes, like I can do this a little more quickly now. So it's a practice thing. So another thing that I really like to do with clients is to really focus in on, like I mentioned earlier, that somatic experience. And I teach that paired with a breathing technique, like the most simple one. I call it square breathing. I'm sure it has a fancier name, but basically it's finding wherever that tension is in your body. Let's say it's a tightness in your chest. And then I have clients breathe, and I tell them they can imagine a square being drawn. They can draw one in the air on their leg, and they're going to inhale like for the count of 4 as they go up. And then they're going to hold their inhale like as they go across. And then they're going to exhale as they go down. And then they're going to hold that exhale as they go across. And 30, 60 seconds of that just is enough for your body to kind of go, okay, like it's all equal. And so I always have people practice that while holding, like, or really noticing wherever their tension is in the body. Another thing that sometimes can be helpful is with that, I have clients imagine if it's a tightness, then on each exhale, I'll have them imagine that like that tightness is just loosening up like just a little. And then on the next exhale, maybe it's loosening up a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, and a little bit more, until eventually like that tightness kind of dissipates in their body. So that's kind of the grounded, mindful aspect. Another thing to stay out of trauma brain, because the only place that we can practice compassion is like human brain, green zone, and that's compassion to self and compassion to others. And so being honest with ourselves about, is there an area in my life that I need to be more gentle with myself, and what would that look like? Or is there a person that I can practice compassion towards? Maybe, when I'm baking all these cookies, maybe I know that I have a friend who would love for me to drop off some cookies with her. Or, maybe I send somebody, a gift card to the coffee shop. Or maybe I know like we're getting like Chick-fil-A catered trays to my grandma's nursing home, like just as a thank you. So right, Katie's like, to me too. Yeah. We do love our Chick-fil-A. But just things like that, like where is an opportunity right now that I can practice compassion to myself first, because we can't be compassionate with others unless we're compassionate with ourselves. And then also like, where can I practice it to other people? And then the next one I mentioned is just being curious and open, like with yourself, like being willing to ask yourself some hard questions right now, and maybe finding a trusted friend or a therapist, someone that you can process through those with, of just asking yourself the questions of like, what am I experiencing right now? What am I afraid of? What feels scary? What feels safe? Like, it's not always, doesn't always have to be a negative question, but just really like being curious about this experience for yourself, in order to be able to stay in a place where like you can be curious here. Like, you can't be curious in trauma brain. You just can't. Your body can't comprehend those kinds of questions. So being curious and opening with yourself, and in that, like, not letting any shame come into that. So no feelings of should, like I should be doing this, I should be doing that, I'm not doing this enough. I'm not, this is a new experience for people. Like, this is uncharted territory. Nobody knows what they're doing. And so there are no wrong answers, right? Like, this can feel scary or not. You can be productive during this time or not. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, there is no shame. People are wired differently, and that's okay. You might knock all of your to-do list out, every home project you could have ever dreamed of, and you might feel really soothed and calm during that, or not. Like, you could not get anything done from your to-do list. Maybe the most like that you get accomplished is that you watch a whole new show, and maybe that's enough, and that's okay. And so when you're curious and open with yourself, you have to do it with like that self-compassion and without shame. And then the last thing is being able to find joy. Like, joy is a human emotion, so that is like prefrontal brain. Well, we know some animals experience joy too, but figuring out like what does it look like to bring joy into your life? Like, maybe you call, a funny friend, maybe you watch a comedian, maybe right, maybe you look up all the really good Tiger King memes. I don't know, like, it's just like different for everybody, but there is so much to be joyful and like to find funny. And so if that means watching, stupid America's Funniest Home videos one night, like, that's fine. Like, whatever you need to do to like incorporate joy and laughter into your life right now, like, that's a good, worthwhile use of your time. So yeah, so that's what I wanted to share. Just a little psycho ed with some practical tips for during this time.
Oh, it was so helpful. The one I was thinking so much, the one when you were saying different things, my brain was sitting here going, oh my, that's like she just expanded on something so and so said last week. Like, Tina's kind of said that and she just expanded, and oh, and da, da, da. And the one thing I'm loving is that all of these just like, right. And I said this, I think, in everyone I've talked to, but just how much I'm taking away from these. And
Mm.
the one, like, there's so much I loved in yours. The one thing I've never thought of is, like, when you talked about the body scan, I loved the internal. And then I loved the imagining when you're breathing out, like picturing that tension. That's actually a very, very, like, close to a hypnotherapy technique. Um,
Oh,
I know, you're basically a hypnotist and you didn't even know it.
I won't claim it.
And so I love that. I will say, since you don't do the itty bitties like me, but for parents, 14, kiddos 14 and under, if your kids are cycling, everything she just told you are things you can teach your children. Every single one of them is great for kids.
Yeah.
The biggest one, I know that if I'm having a hard day and I know that I projected onto my kids or we're just kind of in a rut, I always do the body scan, and then the 5 senses, go through those with my kids at bedtime to help regulate to sleep better.
Mm-hmm.
My kids have loved that all the time. So all of these are applicable to kids also.
Yeah. Well, and even, something I learned from you as a parent, like I have a 6-year-old little boy. And so being able to talk through some of these things out loud, even as you're doing them for them to hear, even just saying things like, oh, like I'm feeling really like stressed. I have this tension in my chest. I'm going to take some deep breaths to calm down. And it's okay to say those things out loud. It's good for kids to hear, oh, mommy or daddy is having a hard time and they are teaching me right now. I mean, they're obviously not saying this, but they are teaching me how to regulate. Like, it's okay to feel overwhelmed and to take deep breaths, and that's a good behavior to model as a parent.
Yeah, it's huge. And that's probably, I tell parents all the time, that's probably my number one. If you don't leave my therapy room with anything else as a parent, leave with learn to speak out loud. I mean, my kids know, like, I'm feeling really frustrated. I'm feeling really overwhelmed. I need to take some deep breaths.
Mm-hmm.
Or if I do the wrong thing and don't handle it, I circle back and say, Mommy was really overwhelmed. I screamed. I should have taken some deep breaths, but that's okay because we all make mistakes and get second chances. And,
Yeah.
but I just love, I loved everything that you said. And I love also just the normalization of knowing and giving ourselves grace and compassion and knowing that no one's experienced this before. We have nothing to compare it to. We have, even the smartest people in the world are confused. And, we just need to give ourselves grace. And
Right, which leaves the rest of us more confused.
Right. It's like, hello, we are dependent on you people. Like,
right. Like, we want you guys to be the experts. Like, please. Yeah.
Exactly. Also, I just noticed real quick before we get off here today, I have not spoken to Grace since she got married during the virus. And this is my first time I've talked to her married. So I introduced her by her maiden name. So are you going to go by that for therapy, or?
Yeah, I think
keep
so.
maiden name for therapy.
Yeah, I think so.
So we're requesting.
Yeah. So, if you need a quarantine activity, I don't recommend getting married right now, but we are happily married. We made it work.
You did. Well, Grace, I cannot thank you enough for jumping on here today. I loved your advice. I loved everything about it. So everyone, once again, I will put all of Grace's information up for the finding place. She said, she's working on being specialized in trauma. She has a ton of tools in her tool belt. What she's trained in is amazing. Brainspotting and EMDR and EFT are out of this world therapy techniques. And, I highly recommend her. And then once again, in the comments, you can find the picture she sent me about the zones that you can check those out. But Grace, I want to thank you again. Thank you so much for jumping on here today. And I hope you have a great rest of the day, and everyone else too.
Thanks, Katie. Thanks for having me.
See y'all.